Florida's in the middle of a massive lawsuit because of what our governor Ron DeSantis did.
That is not appropriate, and I'm not going to accept it.
And you know what? I'm behind him 100% on this, and I think you will be too. The FDA has now said it's okay to grow meat in a lab and serve it to U.S. citizens. And the state of Florida has said absolutely not. And Ron DeSantis banned it and made it illegal in the state of Florida. Now, where did this all come from? I never even heard of lab-grown meat until a few months ago. So let me show you how it started.
Take your fake lab-grown meat elsewhere. We're not doing that in the state of Florida.
That's the message behind the bill Governor DeSantis signed Wednesday. It takes aim at meat grown by scientists in a lab, making it a crime to manufacture or sell cultivated meat in Florida.
Run that video back again for a minute. Do you see this laboratory that this meat is being grown in? Should we even be allowed to call this meat if this is where it's coming from? It's not coming from a cow. It's coming from these metal containers here in some laboratory. And look at how healthy and safe this looks. It's a piece of meat being grown inside a petri dish in a laboratory. And the FDA is saying this is good and healthy and okay for you. There's much more to the story, and you got to listen close.
They want to say this is the same as raising cattle and doing it naturally, then there's no reason that you have this industry. So it is designed to represent a threat to agriculture as we know it.
And supporters say the new law offers protections to Florida's cattle industry.
It's never been more important than today to protect Florida's farmers and ranchers, and that's what this legislation does.
So imagine what would happen to all the beef cattle in the United States if all of a sudden lab-grown meat was accepted and we were forced to eat it. All that farming would go away. And here's a horrible fact that now goes on in the United States that you're probably not even aware of. They can label beef that they get from other countries. The cattle are raised in, let's say, Brazil, Australia, New Zealand. They're slaughtered, the beef is brought to the United States, and they can label it product of the United States as long as it's touched in the United States. So we have no idea where our beef is coming from today. So what do you think they want to do with this lab-grown meat?
But opponents say concerns about lab-grown meat are overblown. Federal regulators have already said some products are safe and ready to eat after receiving FDA approval last year, a point made by cultivated meat industry members during the legislative session.
Of course, the FDA has said that there's no big deal with this meat. Did you know the FDA gets a majority of its funding from food and drug companies that want to sell their products? They do. How's that for a conflict of interest? So thanks again to Ron DeSantis for sticking up for the citizens of Florida because he knows we don't want to eat this garbage. But the biggest question is, how did all this lab-grown meat stuff get started? Where did it even come from? And who thought, hey, let's grow meat in a lab and people will love it? According to a news article in EFUS, lab-grown meat, how it is made and what are the pros and cons, they say the first time a cultivated beef patty was introduced to the world was in August 2013. I had no idea that this was going on back then. Like I said, I'm just starting to hear about this in the news, and I'm pretty disgusted people think this is a healthy option for eating meat. The meat was developed by a team led by Mark Post of Maastricht University. All right, Mark, so you're the one we're gonna blame. At the moment, there are about 60 startups aiming to produce and sell cultivated meat, and not just beef, but also chicken, duck, seafood, foie gras, kangaroo, and more. I want you to pay attention to that term cultivated meat. I'm gonna come back to that. So now we get to the lawsuit. Ron DeSantis and the citizens of Florida had said, keep that lab-grown meat out of Florida. He's protecting the health of Florida citizens and to the cattle farmers in Florida. But these lab-grown meat companies are not happy about it. Check it out.
Right now, a California-based company is suing the state over a new ban on cultivated meat. That new statewide law signed this year prevents selling or manufacturing the products here. Upside Foods, Inc. says that the law violates a constitutional prohibition on favoring in-state businesses over out-of-state competitors. Florida is the first state to ban manufacturing and distributing the sale of cultivated meat. Back in May, Governor Ron DeSantis said the industry could harm Florida's cattle ranchers and our agriculture.
So to be fair, there was one other state that has banned this as well so far, and that's Alabama. So great job, Alabama.
This is not just being done willy-nilly. They want to do this stuff in the lab to be able to wipe the people sitting here today out of business. We will not let that happen in the great state of Florida.
To be clear, we're not looking to replace conventional meat, which will always have a place on our tables. We want to give consumers a choice.
So you did give us a choice, and we say, no, we don't want it in Florida. You can try it in California, see if it works over there. You probably got a better shot, but in Florida, no way.
Last year, the FDA and the U.S. Department of Agriculture approved Upside to make and sell its products.
Again, I don't understand why anybody would want to eat meat grown in that laboratory. It's disgusting. But what's going on with lab-grown meat in other countries all around the world? Are they all in favor of it? Are they all eating lab-grown meat? Let's check it out. According to an article in the Fence Post, European countries ban lab meat in a move to support farmers. Italy's agricultural minister Francisco Lollobrigida said, Italy is the world's first country safe from the social and economic risks of synthetic food. We are safeguarding our food, our system of nutrition, by maintaining the relationship between food, land, and human labor that we have enjoyed for millennia. We have to protect our workers, our agricultural entrepreneurs, and citizens who have the right to eat well, he said. Italy is one of the first countries in Europe to ban lab-grown meat. They stand with Florida and Alabama, and lab-grown meat is not legal in any other European country as of yet. Now, here's something else you might not be aware of. There's a lot of people out there that are against cows and eating beef, and they say that cows are adding to the greenhouse effect, or they're the reason that the earth is getting warmer. They say cows fart and it lets out methane, and that's the reason the earth is getting warmer. I cannot make this shit up. That's the truth, and that's what they're saying. But let's look into that and see if the lab-grown meat is a safer option as opposed to actual real cows with real beef that do happen to fart. Which one's better for the environment? According to UC Davis, they have an article that says lab-grown meat's carbon footprint potentially worse than retail beef. One of the current challenges with lab-grown meat is the use of highly refined or purified growth media, the ingredients needed to help animal cells multiply. How does that sound? Growth media. Does that sound appetizing to you? Currently, this method is similar to the biotechnology used to make pharmaceuticals. This sets up a critical question for cultured meat production. Is it a pharmaceutical product or a food product? That's another great question. What is the long-term effect of this going to be? If it's pharmaceutical, this might turn into something very bad down the road. It goes on to say, if companies are having to purify growth media to pharmaceutical levels, it uses more resources, which then increases global warming potential. If this product continues to be produced using the pharma approach, it's going to be worse for the environment and more expensive than conventional beef production. So I don't know about you, but I'm going to continue to eat the cows that fart. But here's the biggest question, and this is what you really need to be asking yourself. What are the long-term studies or side effects associated with this meat? Because as you already know, people have not been eating this meat for ever, right? Like they have from a cow. This is brand new, and there's got to be health risks with it. Are there any long-term studies? And what are those side effects? So according to the article News Medical Life Sciences, one potential health concern that stands out is the cancer-promoting properties of cells that proliferate exponentially in vitro. So that was a big concern of mine, right? Because I've heard this, I've looked into this, and I've been studying it, and cancer seems to be coming up continually. Consuming lab-grown meat with such faulty cell lines may have unwarranted effects on the human body. The exact effects remain unknown. Again, that's because it's not been studied over a long period of time on what it does to the human body. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a scientific guinea pig. I decided not to be a guinea pig a few years ago when the world fell apart and everything shut down, and I'm not going to be a guinea pig with my food. So you've heard a lot from me about my opinion. What do meat scientists say about this? According to the article in Science Direct, what do meat scientists think about cultured meat? They did a test on scientists in India, and they went through and asked them a series of questions. How do you feel about this? What's the safety? Would you eat it? What do you think the long-term effects are? And here's a summary of that study. The study examined Indian meat scientists' attitudes towards cultured meat, finding that while 38% are open to trying it, only a small percentage are willing to purchase it regularly or replace conventional meat. Concerns about safety, high cost, and unfamiliarity with the technology were major barriers. And now keep in mind again, these are meat scientists. The study suggests that educating consumers about the production process may reduce disgust, and that further research is needed on safety and sustainability. I think it's funny how they use the word disgust in here. It also highlights the importance of using the term cultured meat for better marketing and suggests international studies for broader perspectives. Remember earlier in the video, I told you to remember that term, cultured meat? That is something now they've decided they need to use, and they want to get you away from using the words lab-grown meat because it just doesn't sound appealing. So if they're already changing the name to try to make it more appealing, my biggest concern is that one day they're going to do away with labeling on all of the meat packages. So you're not going to know if you're eating beef from a real cow or from one that was grown in a laboratory. Don't believe me? Have you ever heard of GMO corn? That's corn that's genetically modified so that farmers can spray it with high levels of pesticide and it won't kill the corn. And do you ever go to a grocery store and see where it says GMO corn sold here? Not at all. The only thing that is labeled is non-GMO corn. Currently, up to 92% of corn in the United States is genetically modified. And so are 94% of soybeans, and it's all not labeled. So for some reason, Americans now are the new lab mice for the FDA. They want you to eat this garbage, and they'll see what happens over the next 10 years. And if it turns out bad, I'm sure they'll ban it. So what do you think? Are you gonna eat this garbage? I stand with Governor Ron DeSantis, and I'm not gonna eat meat grown in a petri dish. My health is way more important to me to let the FDA gamble with it on this science experiment. If you found this valuable, don't forget to subscribe and like. This lets YouTube know this is a valuable video and needs to be shared with other people. Thanks for watching.